Okay, so first of all, how do you feel your lesson went?
I felt it went quite well, especially if I'm comparing it to the lesson plan I created. I feel like it followed the plan itself. I did feel fitting all of that into 45 minutes I had to keep myself on that time track that I put in my lesson plan. And technically, if I did this again, I probably want to split it into 2 lessons and maybe spend a little more time, let the students have a little more time in their groups and have a little more time to post things as a group. But overall, I think it followed the lesson well, and transitions went pretty well. There were moments where things took longer, like there was one time, one of the things was I let them choose a marker, and that ended up being like the thing that took the longest for them, just to pull out a little marker from the caddy. So next time I learned a lesson there, just let them use the pencil they're already using that, unless I really want it to be super colorful. And so I guess the main thing was I felt that like a rush, like a time crunch, trying to get all of that into that certain amount of time.
Yeah, it was an accomplishment to get it all in there. You did. So, from my point of view, I thought the lesson went really well. I thought the transitions were smooth. I know what you're talking about. I noticed you counted to 10 to get the kids to get a marker, and you had at one point said, "There's no points."
Yeah.
But you allowed them to finish, to get their markers. But yeah, that was a long time.
Right.
But in the scope of everything, that's not very long. And you have all the materials set. They didn't have to get out of their seats to go, so you had materials there. So
right.
But shall we start with the standards? So we're focusing on the 3 standards.
Mm-hmm.
So the first standard is student development, and what I saw was the kids were engaged in multiple learning styles. So you had, the visuals, you had group work, you had technology, you had and a group, like even your groups were already set. It was just the literacy groups from before, so you didn't have to spend any extra time doing that. So it looks like your management style is very effective.
Yeah. Should I?
Sure.
Say any
What are your thoughts?
One of the things that kind of helps me, and I think I told you originally I got the idea from you, although Teach Now talks about it a lot, is that I do, we do, you do. Almost every lesson in my head kind of follows that format, because I always kind of want to show them what it looks like, and then let them do it together, and then let them do it independently. So it's like a gradual
Scaffold,
process.
Yeah. So I wrote that down, that it could go in any of the categories, but you model the expectations for the students, which definitely gives them a chance to be successful in the we do, you do part. Okay. So it's standard 2. So I thought you did really well with standard 1. Standard 2, learning differences. So how do you feel about the learning differences, and how did you address them in your lesson?
Okay, one of the things, the reason why I even chose this lesson for these standards was partly because of standard 2. It talked about where is standard 2?
Promotes positive and respectful interactions.
Yeah, and at the top it was talking about the candidate uses understanding of individual differences, diverse cultures, and communities. Just that little sentence right there made me think, first of all, cultural studies is the perfect subject to focus in on for that, because we're all about learning about the different cultures. And then also, even where it talks about communities, we were talking about communities within our world, within our classroom, and I thought this was a great way to kind of show learning the cultures, the communities, the differences of each other. So that's part of why I chose the lesson for these standards. Also, it doesn't show in this lesson, but today we actually went further and we talked about the responses that they were talking about, which community they liked the best.
Yeah,
and we shared it, and we actually tallied it on the board to see how many voted for each kind. And then they worked with a partner to find out the latitude and longitude where each person in the classroom is located in the world. So they worked, and then it was kind of like an extension of the lesson. So I thought that kind of went along with standard 2. I do feel I have Tiger, which he is my new student that speaks no English and cannot read, doesn't know his letters, doesn't know his numbers. So that has been a challenge, figuring out ways to get him included into the groups and still successful. That's one of my challenges.
So I know that I noticed him this time. The first time I didn't notice him, he didn't stick out to me, but this time I noticed him. But I noticed that he was following along, he was watching the video, he was engaged, he was following your lesson, he was circling, and he was writing the words down. So yeah, that's, as far as engagement goes, he was doing really well. So we were talking about Tiger and how, he definitely was an outlier within the group, because you can see that he, when he was working in the groups, that he didn't really know his part.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the lesson went, he was really engaged, and he followed along, and he knew his folder, he knew his papers. And I noticed that you checked in on him during the lesson time, and Tiger, so I noticed that. And you use a lot of positive language in your, just all around, I wrote it down, good job Suan, good job Minji. Even in your lesson wrap-up, you said, busy streets, I like what you said. And then skyscrapers, good one, Nathan. And I notice all the little positive things, and it's always positively redirected in the classroom. And so that's that part for the learning environment. I think we'll talk about that next as well.
Okay, so
Jumping ahead.
standard 3?
Yeah, standard 3.
Okay, support individual, collaborative, positive, social, and active engagement, learning, and self-motivation. So what I wrote about that, in this lesson, I thought there was definitely the collaborative part where they were in their small group, and then we actually talked about their answers in a larger group, which for my shy students, I think that works well when they get a chance to think about it before they actually have to share it. So they're with their group, they already have ideas going, and I think that makes it easier for those like myself. When I was in school, it would make me really nervous to just have a question and Okay.
So we were just talking about standard 3, and we were discussing the positive interaction and the learning environment. And I would like to say that while I was walking around, there's plenty of space to walk around. Everything's in its place. It's very organized. And at the evaluation part where the students were writing down, that's what we're talking about, what they chose, the evaluation part.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I noticed that when they were finished, they all had a choice. They went to where they wanted to go. They didn't crowd an area. They didn't run to the area. They went to it. They got their little paper, and they knew that there were different drawers, and in each drawer there was something different. And they came back and they were working on it. It was really awesome. And then I noticed all the little positive little notes around, and your classroom was really warm and inviting.
Thank you. Yeah.
I didn't want to leave, actually. The cleanup song came on, and I knew the lesson was over, but I was like, wow, they're all little soldiers, and they were doing what they were supposed to. They knew what to do, and within 30 seconds they were done, and they were standing behind their chair. So it's in the beginning of the year, your kids have a routine, and they know it. Well. And I wasn't even supposed to see that part. I did not want to leave. I just wanted to stay.
Well, thank you. That really helps to hear what you see. A lot of those things I don't even see because I'm in the midst of things. So it's cool to hear the outskirts and what's happening. Is there anything that you would improve, or maybe something that you would have seen that could have been a better tweak on the lesson? Or?
So I wrote down one thing about Tiger. So everything else, everything flowed. It didn't even bother me that they didn't get their marker in 10 seconds. I thought that was still okay, because your transitions were really fluid and they're really I have to say, this is still the beginning of the year, and it doesn't feel like it. It feels like they know their routine so well that. But with Tiger in the group setting, I noticed that the other kids were all huddled around, and they were all actively participating. And Tiger was a little bit sitting off, and he was just waiting for the time to end. Even though it wasn't very long, but he wasn't participating. And I was just thinking maybe drawing some pictures or having something for him to have a visual of, and being able to get more familiar with the urban and suburban and rural communities, and having those pictures. I noticed that you scaffold your tasks. So the first video was an introduction video, and then you had a lesson, and then you had a video that was a little longer, but it really elaborated, what the differences between the communities, and I just thought it was really fluid. I just thought everything really worked out, and then ending with the evaluation was perfect.
Thank you very much. I love your little